Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's August 29th, 2019. It's a little bit windy, but I thought I'd try shooting this video. Recently I had a text message from my brother, Jim, asking about, well, what's the status on the curly willow living fence that you started a couple months ago? How's it going? So today's video is an update on the curly willow living fence that we started next to one of our property lines, a piece of property that we border around one of our neighbors. And so what I did, and I'll put a link in the upper right hand corner to that video, I went ahead and did a little bit of pruning of this willow and another willow right over bordering pond 5 right here. And I took a lot of limbs that were from 1/4 inch in diameter to probably 3/4 of an inch in diameter, and I stuck those in the ground. Just took a wrecking bar, stuck a hole in the ground, made a hole in the ground with a wrecking bar, and then went ahead and took the curly willow hardwood cuttings and stuck them right into the hole. Some of it did already have leaves out, and because the willows have such potent growth hormones, that they tend to send down roots pretty darn well. I also, in that video, you would have seen some of the main branches that were about this big in diameter, some probably 3.5 to 4 inches in diameter, down to 2.5 inches in diameter. I think there were like 5 of them. And I had them laying right over here next to the pond edge. And I mentioned at that time that I've known people who have told me that they've gone ahead, taken willows, cut them off as big 4-inch poles, stick a hole in the ground, make a hole in the ground, stick them in the ground, and they turn out to be nice willow trees ultimately. So what I thought I'd do is give you an update. Over here I took a couple of those poles that were laying on the ground, I stuck them into the ground, into an old stone wall, and they've survived so far. So what I thought I'd do is go ahead, put my GoPro helmet cam on, go into the woods and see how the living fence is doing. I haven't been over there, and it's been a pretty dry season. And I'll also show you over here into the stone wall where I stuck those poles basically in the ground, and we'll see how they're doing as well. So here we go. Okay, I'm over at the woods edge right here. You can see it's full sun out there, and we're going into the woods where there's just dappled light coming through in most places. Just turning on my handheld GoPro as well. Okay, I could see a couple of curly willows as I get closer here. Looks like most of my flags have fallen down. Okay, so here's one of the curly willows right here in front of me. Doesn't look great, but it is alive. And it has been a dry season. There's another curly willow right here. I think I'll turn the camera down a little bit. Another one here. It looks like it's died back some and come back, and there's a couple of small ones along the ground level down here. This one's still alive. I can see little bits of green buds right up here at the top, and you can see these had shot up here. It's still alive, and the main thing we want to do is, up until this fall, we want these buggers to go ahead. Nice little tulip tree here to go ahead, and here's another curly willow here. The small ones real close to the ground down here. I didn't know which ones would do best, so I put quite a few in here, and it's hard to see because all the weeds around here, but this is a curly willow, this is a curly willow, this is a curly willow, This is a curly willow here. That's a curly willow. That's a curly willow. So they're all along this property line. More curly willows. Curly willows, curly willow. This one towards the top. There's some leaf out. Doesn't look great, but it's doing okay. Another one here. So for a full sun type of tree, these are actually doing okay. Some more curly willows. Geez, I don't see any that are dead yet. I'm sure there are some. Where are the ones in here? I see this one here. And my goal would be, the way I'm going to, my plan is, let them all have at least 1 year. There's another one here, another one here, so that they can start to shoot up and establish really good roots all along in here. These are all doing pretty darn well, considering how dry this season has been. Now this was all water in the area that I'm walking through right now last season. Another nice curly willow. That one may be dead. This one still has life in it. But being in the shade, each one of these buggers should start shooting up in the springtime. Let's see if the cambium is still. It's brown right there. The cambium doesn't look alive right there on this one. No. So this one may be dead, but I've had these before where they look dead, the whole stalk looked dead. The roots are still alive and they shoot up a new shoot in the spring. So this is really good, considering this is in full shade in here in the woods. A little bit of sunshine coming through to that open area there. Okay. And that's a couple 100 foot of length. Let's go back over to where the pond is and look at those bigger poles that we stuck in the ground. Okay, so we're over here by Pond 5, one of the ponds we're trying to patch gradually each year. It's been making progress. It's better off this year than it was last year. But this is one of the curly willows right here in front of me that originally was a small, probably 18 or 24 inch long twig, maybe 1/4 inch in diameter to 3/8 inch in diameter. We stuck in here. I think we had 3 or 4 of them initially, and we've got 4 of these trees. And I never did any major pruning. I have done some pruning on these, but I'll be doing more pruning as time goes on. I'm going to try and get these to be single or double trunks. So I'll be trimming off all of these and building another living fence here in the near future. Let's go over to the other curly willow. This is the one that I spent quite a bit of time pruning this spring. And a twig like one of these would turn into a beautiful tree, and that's where a lot of the ones that you saw in the woods, where, you know, they were about this size, stick them in the ground, and if there's sun and there's any moisture in the ground, these things are going to take off. Now this conformation might work for a country farm living fence. I think this would be fine. But as far as what I want it to have be a snow fence, be a wind fence, help to deal with pollution as well, and be not so obtrusive. In other words, so wide a girth. And I'll show you what I want the trees to be like eventually. Now here's one of the limbs that I cut off this spring, and we're laying over there on the ground. And we're laying over there. This right here is one of those things. I took the Bumblebee, the mini excavator, punched a hole in the ground down here, and you can see that one's doing just fine. I'll show you what I want them to look like eventually. So the way that I've been starting to work with, now this is either 4 or 5 years old, and this is the way that I'll go ahead and start training the curly willows around each of the living fences. And I'll be starting another one this fall and early next spring all alongside of the cedar fence. So I'll take a whole bunch of poles and a whole bunch of small ones, and I'll keep pruning them to about 4 or 5 feet tall, right around here, then allow them to bush out. I'll try to get them somewhat balanced. That will help to be a really good way of collecting pollution. The PM2s, the PAHs, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons and all that are in the air help to reduce pollution. And those leaves will fall off in the fall, and the fungi will break those down. It'll also be really good for the wind-blown snow that comes across the property. So I don't want these to get super tall, but I want them to get a little bit taller than this one is, but have an open space down below so I can have the productive berry bushes, the elderberry, the gooseberries, the currants, the blackberries, the raspberries, all of the different berry producing plants down below, and potentially hazelnuts as well. So this is one that's about 6 years old, and I've got to come through again and trim off some of these lower limbs. So you can see here places each year I keep coming through trimming off these lower limbs until we get about here. It's around 5 foot tall, and then allow it to bush out like it is. But I have plenty of room if I wanted to put flowering bushes below it or berry producing bushes. I can heavily mulch the area below it as well. So, and here's another one. So this is what I'll be doing along there. Now if I just wanted to create complete strict wind breaks and snow breaks, one of the things I do is I'd leave these ones like they are going, sorry about the wind, but I would put something like the pussy willows, which you've seen me do the cuttings before, and have them be lower bush-like plants as well, creating ideal habitat for birds as well. And so that's another one of the curly willows that are there. Here's another one of the living fences I've been showing each year. These are all the black locust trees all along in here, a nice row of these, and this is where I get a lot of the seeds for transplanting in other areas, not transplanting but starting seeds. And these ones, because this is such a high wind area, these limbs do get broken when the herons land on there and they're doing their fishing and all. And we'll come over here, and I have a couple more of those poles that I stuck right over here. So these were all black locusts that the deer rub had broken them all off at the lower levels here. And someplace in here, here's one. But ignore these weeds here. But here are the two of the limbs from the curly willows, you could see. And this is just a stone wall down in here. So I took Bumblebee, the mini excavator, shoved some of the soil back in there. There's another one that's behind over in there. It's hard to see, but where the brown leaves are, there's one that's bent backwards a little bit. Here's another one here. And they're just an amazing tree. They'll throw out and they create these. My wife asked me, she said, well, are you worried about these trees being in the dam wall? So this is pond 5, which is a very leaky pond, and our ground is all gravel here. So she was wondering, geez, you're putting these trees along the dam wall. Aren't their roots going to create more of a path for water to leak through this whole stone area and gravel area here and go into the neighbor's area? And although that's possible, willows have such networking fine mesh of roots that they actually do quite well, and they reinforce a dam wall similar to the way that bamboo does, or rhizomes from irises and all. So I still have a lot more work to do on this pond. If you're interested in getting an update on this, put a comment below and I'll make a video with the update of how things worked out this season. So in general, I'm pretty happy with how the curly willow hardwood cuttings have done. I think it's been about 2 months. I'll have to look at the date that I actually posted the hardwood cuttings of the curly willows. I'm pretty impressed that they've done as well as they have done in the full shade in the woodland, in the woodlot in the forest area. And it's been another really dry season. We did have one set of flooding rains, and we've probably gotten about maybe 3/4 of an inch other than that during the summertime. Enough where I've had to be doing some watering of all the new trees that we planted this season in the food forest. So I'm pretty happy with how things have worked out. It certainly looks like they're all willows, these curly willows and pussy willows. They really need minimal attention. They can take a lot of benign neglect and still do very, very well. And I hope this wasn't so windy that you couldn't understand what I was saying when I was walking around or during this part as well. So we're over here on the west side of the property, super high wind levels even when the winds are pretty calm. But as we get further towards the east, it's much calmer. When in the woods, you didn't notice any wind at all. So if you found this video of value, please give us a thumbs up. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. And by all means, folks, have a super fantastic day. Bye-bye now.